Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Karen threw a tantrum at the airline desk. We waited patiently. Several years ago, my wife and I took a much-needed vacation to a Caribbean island for a week of scuba diving. It was one of those picture-perfect trips. Turquoise water, amazing dives, great food, and the kind of relaxation you can only get when you're 2,000 miles away from your inbox. Everything went smoothly. Until the trip home. Our return flight had a layover in Puerto Rico. The plan was to catch our connection and be home in time for a late dinner. Simple. But you know how travel goes. Simple turned into a full-blown headache when mechanical issues delayed our first flight for hours. By the time we took off, we already knew we'd missed our connection, and just to add a little extra chaos, our entire flight's worth of luggage was left behind. So now you've got a plane load of tired passengers standing in line at a tiny counter in the Puerto Rico airport with two overworked gate agents trying to rebook everyone one at a time. You can probably imagine the mood. Right in front of us in line is what I can only describe as a classic Karen. Loud, pushy, aggressively gesturing, and absolutely convinced the universe has personally wronged her. She's traveling with her family and is furious that they won't be getting home that night. "I have to get home tonight. This is completely unacceptable," she shouted at the agent, who looked like she'd just bitten into a lemon and was trying not to spit it out. "We have plans. I'm not staying in some cheap hotel." The agent calmly offered her the next available flight, which was the next day, a complimentary hotel room for the night, and taxi vouchers. Karen? Nope, that just would not do. She continued ranting, demanding supervisors, threatening complaints, acting like she was the only person in the building who mattered. Eventually, after much flouncing and loud sighing, she and her grumbling family were sorted, and they stormed off with their vouchers like they were a court summons. Then it was our turn. My wife and I, exhausted but not looking to take it out on anyone, simply smiled and said, "Hi, we understand it's a mess and we know it's not your fault. Whatever gets us home safely is fine with us." I swear, the tension visibly left the agent's shoulders. "You two have been so patient. Thank you," she said. "I can get you on the same flight tomorrow as everyone else, and we'll cover the hotel and taxi. Is that okay?" "Absolutely," we said, grateful to just have a bed and a plan. She looked around for a moment, then leaned in a little closer and said, "Because you've been so kind, I'm going to upgrade you both to first class tomorrow." We blinked. "Wait, really?" She nodded, smiled, and handed us our tickets. The next morning, we spent a few hours strolling around Old San Juan, got some coffee, took photos, enjoyed the unexpected extra vacation time. Then we headed back to the airport, checked in, and were told our luggage had caught up and was on board with us. Things were finally going right again. When we boarded, we were ushered into first class, handed pre-takeoff drinks, and sank into those plush seats like royalty. It was bliss. And then the final boarding group entered the plane. I looked up from my seat, and wouldn't you know it, there was Karen. She and her family shuffled past us, looking tired, annoyed, and thoroughly unimpressed with Coach. We made eye contact for a second. She blinked as if recognizing us, then looked away. My wife and I just smiled at each other and raised our glasses. Sometimes being kind to someone who's having a hard day pays off in unexpected ways. Love the karma here. Some people don't remember that those working for airlines are doing a job. And just because you're paying for a service doesn't mean they shouldn't be treated with decency and respect at all times. And our second story. My name's Dan, the neighbor nobody spots at parties because I don't go to parties. I'm an introvert and an engineer. My idea of team building is when an angle grinder, a welder, and a pile of rebar decide to become a life-size dragon. A few of my metal creatures have ended up with rich folks. One Hollywood producer parked my fish cactus by his pool, where it now rusts with dignity. I've gifted a couple to friends. Most stand in my backyard, lined up like something between a parade and a scrapyard. I live in the U.S., in a perfectly average suburb. My street's split into two camps, us, the people, and them, the HOA. I'm lucky enough to be us. 5 houses down lives my boss, the owner of the company I worked at for 10 years. He's a pompous guy, but he kept his distance as long as the money rolled in. His wife, Karen, is the HOA president. If you're picturing helmet blonde hair, sunglasses that could fry an ant, and a clipboard labeled "Fines for the Soul," you've got the right person. For years, Karen came at me sideways. Through neighbors, group chats, and the local Facebook group, Our Cozy Neighborhood. "Some man's turning his yard into a steel mill," she'd post. People hit like, and I got back to welding the Bugmobile, complete with a custom plate that read, "Bzzz." I wasn't in the HOA. My small but stainless happiness. Everything changed when she got elected president. That same week, my boss called. "Daniel," he said in the kind of voice that can fire 3 people and not make a llama blink, "we need to talk about your, sculpture garden." "My yard," I said. "It's not under your jurisdiction. Or the HOA's. "It's an informal request," he exhaled. Karen's upset. Karen lives 5 houses and 1 legal canyon called "I'm not in the HOA" away from me. I said, "I pay taxes, I pay my electric bill. If it's about noise, I weld in daylight on weekends. Safety, I own a fire extinguisher and a hard hat. Aesthetics, it's art. I can issue a receipt." "Get rid of them," he growled, dropping the "please, or there will be consequences." "Depending on the consequences," I said, "I've got counter consequences." He hung up like the phone was my head. The next day, I got an email from HR titled "Change in Employment Status." It was polite, sterile, and cold. "Your employment is terminated. Thank you for your contributions. Documents attached. Here's your Cobra link. God bless America." A minute later, the boss called. "I warned you," he said. "Now you'll have plenty of time to admire your metal monsters." "Oh, absolutely," I said, "and time to settle accounts. For example, 6 years of accrued PTO and 3 patents your flagship product sits on." "What patents?" He sounded like he'd just been stung by my fish cactus. "The ones I invented before you bought the company," I reminded him. "You licensed them through my LLC. The license auto-renewed each year until Party A committed, let me quote, hostile action against Party B. Firing me because your wife doesn't like my yard qualifies as fairly hostile. You're bluffing." I'm an introvert. We don't bluff. We spend years reading the fine print. He slammed the phone again, Olympic-level handset throwing. I called my attorney, Nate, short guy, gray blazer, voice that even your toaster would obey. "Hey, Dan," Nate said, "is it time for Plan B?" "It is," I said. "I was fired for making art. Let's turn art into cash." "Give me the bullet points." I laid it out. 6 years of PTO that our state requires to be paid out on termination, 3 patents, active cooling method for virtual transistor gates, boring name, but money likes boring, hybrid driver for high-frequency converters, and modular battery cabinet architecture, which our company sold worldwide, and the license through my LLC with the hostile action termination clause. Hostile action clause. Nate smacked his lips. Chef's kiss. Lawyers love it. CEOs married to Karens hate it. That lets us terminate the license immediately and move for a temporary restraining order. Let's get a TRO. English, please. Yesterday they could sell your invention, today they can't. If they do, we triple their damages. Even if they think they're right, the CFO will hit the brakes because CFOs like bonuses more than lawsuits. Music to my ears, I said. Play me a little more violin. We'll send a notice of license termination and a cease and desist, he said. CC the CEO, CFO, COO, board, key investors, and your favorite customer. Very gently. Heads up, potential supply disruption for reasons beyond your control. People will panic in all the right ways. And HR? HR gets a demand for PTO payout with the state statute cited. Nate said, also a letter about vested options if you have them. I do, I said. They're vested. Beautiful. Vested is like a prepaid dessert. No one kicks you out before cake. We lined it all up. That evening, I rolled the Bugmobile to the front yard, set a spotlight under it, and did a sunrise photo session. Let the neighbors talk. I was in a great mood. At 9 a.m., Nate hit send. 20 minutes later, the CFO called, sounding like he'd seen a tax auditor in his tie's reflection. Dan, he stammered, there's been a misunderstanding. You can't just terminate the license. I can. I helped. Section 14 sub C second paragraph. When's the last time you read it out loud? Then Karen called. Of course she had my number. Karen has everyone's number. I'm told you're blackmailing my family, she spat, over your rusty junk. They're sculptures, I corrected, and I'm not blackmailing anyone. I'm an engineer protecting his rights. You'll destroy a business, she yelled. Possibly, I agreed, or maybe a business destroys itself when it fires people for annoying the wife. I'll sue you for emotional damages, she snapped, and for violating neighborhood aesthetics. I'm not in the HOA, I reminded her, and my sculptures comply with local code. I checked. By the way, how are your voters feeling about you meddling beyond your budget? She tried to hang up with the same flair as her husband. Not quite there. By lunch, production actually stopped. I pictured the warehouse, neat rows of my battery cabinets, now just cabinets, because the architecture was no longer theirs. I got an internal memo, effective immediately, pause use of technologies covered by patents US 9, US 10, US 11, HR replied. We are reviewing your PTO payout request pursuant to state law. Translation, we're Googling and sweating. Next day, Nate filed for the TRO. He spoke calmly. Their lawyer shouted. The judge was the kind who'd seen everything. He looked at our contract, the hostile action clause, HR's terminated without cause language, and sighed. Why did you fire the man in the middle of a license that ties your profit island to his mainland of rights? He asked the company's attorney. Personal reasons. Figured, the judge said. TRO for 14 days. We'll revisit. In plain English, touch those patents and pay triple. The CFO probably fashioned a fidget spinner out of gray hair. Day 3, the boss called. Okay, he puffed like he'd sprinted. What do you want? You wanted to curate the aesthetics of my yard, I said. Let's curate the aesthetics of business. 1, pay every hour of my 6 years of PTO plus interest. 2, breach compensation and my legal fees. 3, a new patent license, non-exclusive, but expensive. Royalties up 50% with a minimum annual payment. 4, a public apology. You're insane. That'll cost us millions. Maybe, I said, or tens of millions if we keep going. Your menu has a salad and a fire extinguisher. No, he barked. We'll fight. Great, I said. I'll add a new sculpture. Company headbutting the law, made out of number 5 rebar. Lovely ring to it. That evening, Karen convened an emergency HOA meeting at the park. I'm not a member, but parks are still public. I brought a thermos of coffee and a small statue called Baby Dynamo, sat on a bench. This man, Karen pointed at me, is destroying our neighborhood. His rusty things, his lawyers, he shut down honest work. They shut down because they broke a contract, I said. I'm here as a citizen, by the way. Curious why an HOA president's blowing dues on a war with a yard that isn't in the HOA. We're fighting for aesthetics, she cried. So am I said. Mine just come with invoices. The crowd murmured. A few neighbors who quietly bought small pieces from me avoided Karen's gaze. An older gentleman raised his hand. Madam President, he said, our building sprinklers have been busted for 2 months because the budget went to legal consults. Maybe stop calling other people's bosses. Karen boiled. 2 board members traded the "we're in trouble" look. Meanwhile, Nate sent me Plan B Prime. Called the flagship customer, the big utility with a contract for our cabinets. We didn't want to hurt bystanders, so Nate used a doctor's bedside manner. Your supplier has temporary legal turbulence. We're working on a quick resolution. Recommend holding new orders until X date or confirming no patented components are involved. Smart people hate risk. Day 4, the boss showed up in person. No Karen. She was probably hiding behind a shrub, pretending to be landscaping. Dan, he said, shifting on his feet. I overreacted. I'm sorry. Now we're getting somewhere, I nodded. How much, he asked, specifically. Great, I said, pulling out a list. 1, all PTO plus interest. 2, royalty bump by 50% minimum annual paid up front. 3, my severance as written in my original offer. 4, a public apology. 5, a $100,000 fund for a welding shop at our local high school. 6, one of my sculptures at your HQ entrance. You're joking, he snorted. It's called the Stag of Corporate Responsibility, I explained. Antlers made from shipping pallets. Very symbolic. He stared a long time. From my fence, the bugmobile glinted at him. Somewhere beyond the fence, Karen merged with a hedge and hissed like a kettle. Fine, he said, except the last part. Then it's TRO, trial, press, ITC, and I sublet your office for my gallery, I said, no smile. Sorry, this isn't art anymore, it's arithmetic. Fine, he repeated, tasting lemon, but no social media. No social media, I agreed, just an internal bulletin and a press release about the school fund. That night, the CFO emailed confirming approval of payments, followed by a list with more zeros than a baseball stat line. HR sent the e-sign links, Nate reviewed everything, and we hit sign. The court canceled the hearing, parties settled. The next week, I ran into Karen on the street, tugging her Pomeranian who looked more presidential than she did. So this was your plan all along, she said. Bleed us dry, and now you're shoving that stag in their lobby? Yep, I said cheerfully. Been planning it ever since I picked up a welder. She huffed off like she'd somehow won. And the stag? It looks fantastic in their foyer, especially because it reminds the boss who's in charge here. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.